80 out of 100 organizations. Oh, it was not recording right now. I'm sorry. I think the recording started just right now. But yeah, so out of 100, 80 companies either they do have a SOC or they do plan to implement a SOC in their infrastructure. 80 out of 100. So you see such a wide sea, right? And the number is still increasing as the non companies are growing, as the non startups are growing, as the non the businesses are expanding. Companies do understand the value of security, and because all of the operations, be it payment, be it management of employees, be it team interaction, be it transfer of data, everything that you imagine today that is required to operate a business or operate an organization, it is happening online, it is happening digitally, right? The moment I use the word digital, it means there is a digital footprint. It means you are exposed to the cyber world, right? And cyber world has no boundaries. Right now, we when we travel physically in the physical plane, in the physical world, we do have boundaries, right? We have India border, we have Pakistan border, we have boundaries between the states and so on. But cyber world has no boundaries. Okay, so that's the need of SOC. However, if you see an estimated global, there is a shortfall of 3.4 million cybersecurity workers. So there is this need of security analysts so much, and actual count is very less. All right. So on the other hand, you see SOC people, I mean, organizations have such big SOC implementation plans. On the other hand, they don't have the skill sets, required skill sets or the required talent in the industry today. So I'm not saying that all the people working in SOC are not talented, but at the end of the day, the SOC world is so dynamic, so ever changing. The technology is constantly changing. So there is a shortage of people who are quite dynamic, who are quite flexible, and people who have vast knowledge of SOC. Okay, so today, even if I say a normal SOC analyst who wants to do an entry level job in SOC, if you read the job description today, you'll be like bluffed. Like, I mean, as at an entry level, so many things they are asking today in SOC, right? But that's the harsh reality of the SOC world. But no worries, we'll try to understand and decode why SOC world is like this and what exactly is the function of a SOC. So SOC at a high level, it has various and multiple functions. Okay, it is used for alert management, it is used for incident response, it is used for log management, it is used for compliance work, it is used for prevention and proactive monitoring, intelligence, recovery and remediation, and posture refinement as well. Whew, so many big terms, right? So yeah, I mean, that is why SOC is so in demand and SOC is so important, because it has multiple responsibilities. I'm not sure whether you guys are aware or not, but have you heard this quote called as "with great power comes great responsibilities"? It's by one of my favorite superheroes, and I won't call the name. You guys are smart enough to know which superhero I'm talking about. Similar to that, in SOC, with great powers, in SOC there are great responsibilities. So a SOC is responsible for managing multiple areas of security within an organization. Okay, so if there is anything or everything associated to security in an organization, all eyes are on the SOC. Okay, SOC is Security Operations Center. Okay, now how all of this is functioned by a SOC, right? What, so these are some of the function areas of SOC, right? But in at a core level, how does a SOC operate? What are the actual layers in a SOC, right? So, and I mean, this is quite a generic, this, if the source is, I mean, if you google this image, this is by Palo Alto actually. Okay, I've not created my own image, to be honest. So credits to Palo Alto, I have not mentioned over here, but now you guys know. Okay, so at a high level, this diagram is not an actual representation of a SOC, but because it differs from organization to organization. There are small scale organizations who deploy SOC in a different manner. There are medium scale and there are large scale, and each team or each organization have their own budget constraints, own methods. So they basically keep SOC at their own layers. But at a high level, this is how a SOC looks like. Okay, so like we have multiple roles and responsibilities. Some people are behave like some people have the role of a security engineer, some of a red team, some of vulnerability assessment, some of threat hunter. Now when I say role, I necessarily do not mean that these people have this title in their job. No, these are actually, so usually people do get confused that these are job titles, because yes, when you apply for a malware analyst, you are called as a malware analyst, that's true. but in many organizations, especially when I'm talking about medium scale or small scale, so even a security engineer does vulnerability assessment. Even a security engineer does threat intelligence. The reason I'm saying this is because I am one of those security engineers in my current organization. Okay. So let's say I have worked with those organizations wherein, as per the title, I am called as a security engineer. Okay. But I have the roles and responsibilities of multiple people, be it vulnerability assessment, if I have to do vulnerability assessment, if I have to do threat hunting, if I have to do forensics, or if I have to do threat intel, I'm responsible for all of those service lines. Okay, so consider this section as service lines. Okay, meaning if there is a malware analyst, it means that SOC should have malware analysis. If there is a threat intelligence, means SOC should have threat intel. If there is forensics, means SOC should have digital forensics and incident response. If there is vulnerability assessment expert, it means the SOC is performing vulnerability assessment also. Okay, so that is how you look at this particular box. So this is the first layer. Going up, how the SOC functions is there are three analysts we call as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. People usually call them as L1, L2, L3 analyst. Okay, so what exactly happens at L1, L2, L3, or tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? It just means that the skill of a person is increasing and the roles and responsibility and the power of a person is increasing. If I say I'm a tier 1 analyst, it means my primary role is to just look at the dashboard, triage the alerts, assist L2 in some day-to-day activities, create reports and dashboards. That is what a tier 1 does. When I say tier 2, I open my roles. Like, let's say after a tier 1, I go to tier 2. I consider myself as a threat hunter doing some threat hunting, or I consider myself as a digital forensic expert who is investigating into an alert. And at tier 3 and above, again, means you know L1, you know L2, you are someone who can train L1 and L2, you are at an architect level, you deploy your SOC, you deploy rules within your SOC, you onboard new log sources and all those other stuff, you do the financing and the budgeting part, you directly coordinate with the incident response coordinator or the SOC manager. Okay, so that's how this layer functions. Okay, and as we move from tier 1 to tier 3, you see decreasing number of alerts and increasing number of severity. It means the false positives reduces as we go to tier 3. It means tier 3 and so on, there are actual incidents, that there is an actual cybersecurity breach or something. Okay, all of all of this layer, it works together with all of these function lines, and the entire SOC reports to CISO, which is a Chief Information Security Officer. I'm not sure, but I'm just giving you bluff over here. I believe people who are into SOC or blue team, at one point in time, everyone have a dream to be a CISO. I mean, I did have, I do have. I'm not sure about you guys. You can let me know in the chat. And when I say external personnel, so what happens many times, SOC also requires external support. Let's say I have an own in-house SOC. I have hosted my own SOC, but during an incident, I require SOC support from an external third-party vendor, or I require, let's say, support from other security organization. So that is an external support. It could be a person, it could be an entire organization. Depends. And then there are two, consulting type roles. One is called as a security architect and one is called as a security consultant. Now these necessarily may not be full-time part of this SOC, right? Because usually what architects are, they come in the organization, they deploy something, they go away, they move on to the new project. That is how an architect works, correct? So that's why they are separated. They could be in this box, but a separate bifurcation is done because they might be full time or they might not be a full time in this SOC world, in this SOC box. Hence, sometimes they can also be external personnel or sometimes internal as well. Okay, and all of these green boxes, why you see these green boxes: incident response coordinator, SOC manager, CISO. These are all managerial level roles. Okay, they more or less are involved in the technical hassles, but they are more into the operations and the overall effectiveness and the management of the entire operations. Technical part, all these guys are taking care of. Okay, consulting part, all these two guys are taking care of. And that is how a SOC is operated at a layer, at a surface level. Okay, now before I move on to the next diagram, I'll just take a minute to see if there are any questions. Uh, uh, just give me a thumbs up if everything is smooth so far, and it will also make me aware that you guys are awake and you have not slept so far. That's awesome. I'll just move on. Now I know this slide seems like too much of an information to you, but I'll try to make it easy. I'll try to consolidate for you. Reason I've included this particular image is to make you understand about different security aspects of SOC in terms of what are the service lines that a SOC provides, or what are the tools and technologies. So in the upcoming slide, I'll be talking about one specific and one of the important tool of SOC, but at a high level, there are many tools that you utilize in a SOC. There is no limit on it. Okay, but this is how it works at a high level. Okay, so let's say in SOC you have different type of logs, means data. Log, I'm referring to the data at most simple layman definition I'm giving right now. Log, what I'm meaning over here is data. So in SOC, you are getting data from multiple, areas. So it could be your cloud environment, it could be your endpoint, it could be your some application, web application, it could be your infrastructure logs, it could be your IAM logs, or it could be your network related logs, logs from your firewalls, routers, and switches, and so on. Anything. So you are getting data from multiple, places inside a SOC. Okay, this is a client. Client means the from where the data is coming. Okay, that is a client over here. Then for detection, what are the tools and technologies? Okay, we have a SIM, we have EDR, we have EPP, we have NDR, Cloud Protect, Deception, multiple tools. I won't be going into each one of these, like, because SIM, I'll be touching upon SIM because it's the primary layer, it's a primary tooling. However, there is EDR, endpoint detection and response, and there is NDR, there is DLPs, and so on, right? But there are various detection layers in SOC. So that is one part of it. That each, whatever data you get, to understand that data, to process that data, to make meaning out of that data, there are different tools. There is not just one single tool. Okay. So let me give you a very layman example on this one. So let's say I have, let's say, 5 ingredients at my home. The same 5 ingredients you had at your home. Okay, but still using those same 5 ingredients, you can make an entirely different recipe with a different taste, and I can make an entire different recipe with a different taste. Correct. So regardless of the data, the type of data, SOC has multiple tools to understand and make sense out of that data. Each tool will make the use of data in a different way. That is how you can understand. I hope it's more clear now. Okay, now when we go into the next layer, so let's say these two layers, like, what exactly is a SOC function in terms of SOC does the enrichment and analytics. Okay, SOC does the orchestration, automation, and response. These are some of the expanded elaborations of what all of these layers are doing. So all of these layers are helping in enrichment and analysis, and they are helping in orchestration, automation, and response. Okay, I won't be reading each one of these. As I said, I won't be reading everything on the slide. Whatever is important, relevant, and makes sense, because I don't want to, deep dive what is elastic data lake and so on. It's at a high level, it is what it does: enrichment, analytics, orchestration, automation, response. And all of these layers assist in most primary function of a SOC, that is being 24 by 7 globally available. Okay, I mean, this is a slide I've taken from a vendor solution. So you see there is written 𝐒𝐞𝐜 and global SOC. So it's a vendor representation actually. Some vendor trying to sell themselves. But you see the diagram makes sense in terms of how the SOC operates. Hence I chose this diagram. Okay. Then apart from the detection layers, there is a service value that a SOC should provide. Like apart from security services. So it's not just security, but I mentioned about the word compliance also, right? So SOC also aids and supports compliance service values such as ISO standard or NIST standard, right? So let's say what NIST says. Let's say one of the NIST control, and all these controls are compliance frameworks. I am sure you guys know what is a compliance framework, but at a very layman level, what I understand compliance is that these are nothing but the set of rules. If you follow a rule, you are good. If you don't follow your rule, you are bad, or you might face some consequences. That is what SOC, I mean, compliances are. Conditions basically. So compliance is that if, let's say, if you want to be NIST certified, you should have a SIM solution to your SOC, and if you have it, one of the control of NIST is check mark. That is how compliance works. So in for organizations to be compliant, okay, they also take SOC, or they also take these detection layers into the consideration from a compliance standpoint. It's not necessary that you need a SIM solution altogether, though it's a first layer of detection. But still, if you have a SIM, you are automatically eligible for many of the compliance check marks. Okay. And at the end of the day, what are the value outcomes of a SOC? You reduce detection and response times. It means if you have a well established and a mature SOC, you will detect threats easily and you'll respond on threats easily. You have a better visibility over your data. You have proactive security, and your threat stance means where do you lie, what is your current standpoint. Okay. So that is what how a SOC, security as a service, operates. Now all of this, consolidating into one sentence is called as SOC. And if you define SOC in one single sentence, it is a central place or a team that keeps an eye on the organization technology or the computer system and the network to protect them against cyber threats. Most layman definition. It is just like any traditional physical defense, but in digital world. So in real physical world, you have access ID, you have ID cards, right? Without the ID card, you are not permitted to enter the office. Similarly, in SOC, there are digital tools, right? So these are digital controls, digital security, which monitors, detects, analyzes, responds to potential cyber threats to your organization. That is itself is a SOC. Now, consider SOC as a security as a service. I just explained that deals with threat detection and event management. So, in order to establish a successful SOC, there are multiple criteria, but the four primary criteria are these: human resource, no, not the HR, human resource. Okay, otherwise you guys will make faces right now. Tech stack, infrastructure, management, and processes. These are the four primary requirements. So, human resource in terms of SOC, what I am referring over here is people who are trained in SOC. L1 analyst, L2 analyst, because it's 24 by 7. There are people working in shifts: morning shift, evening shift, afternoon shift, night shift. 24 by 7, someone or the other is working, because an attacker or a threat will not intimate you before coming. Hey, I'm coming, be ready, right? It can come any moment. Then there should be appropriate tech stack. It means there should be appropriate detection layers, right? So SOC does not mandate that if you want a SOC, there should be a SIM, but compliance standards do mandate it, and hence it's quite understandable that if you want a basic SOC setup, SIM is the first line. It's mandatory, and I'll tell you why in the upcoming slides. So appropriate tech stack is required. Appropriate infrastructure is also required. So let's say if you want physical infrastructure, if you ask me about physical infra, each SOC team should have a dual monitor display, a war room where people can come and collaborate and discuss on the incidents. Each SOC analyst should have proper access to the infrastructure in terms of the tools and technologies also. Okay, that's how the SOC environment should be set up, and there should be well established management and SOC processes. It means that just because you have a tool, it doesn't mean you have a SOC. There should be a proper management layer or a management outline that how do you manage that tool, what is the process of that tool, how do you manage threat intel, how do you manage incident response, how do you manage these compliance standards. That management and processes should be there. Okay, just because you have a tool doesn't mean you become clicking monkeys. Now comes to one of the most important technology of SOC. You guys are aware of the first line of defense. When I say India's first line of defense, what do you call? What do you know? Who is India's first line of defense? It's the BSF, Border Security Force. So we have Army, Navy, Air Force, and so on. But there is a term called as first line of defense. So when I say India's first line of defense, the very first primary layer at where the India is defending, is BSF, Border Security Force. Similarly, in SOC, I term the SIM as the first line of defense in SOC. That's the most primary. use case, the most primary detection layer. It stands for Security Information Event Management. How does it stand? I mean, why does it stand for SIEM? So this entire term is made up of two components, SIM and SEM. Security Information Management, Security Event Management. Information management deals with collection of logs. Event management deals with analysis of the logs, collection of data, analysis of the data. Combine both together, it becomes Security Information Event Management. Means you are collecting the logs plus you are analyzing the data. Okay, that's what you are doing over here. Correct. So that is how you understand a SIM at a very high level and at a surface level. I hope this is the most layman definition you have ever received in a SIM. Now, how exactly a SIM functions, and these are five funny statements which I know right now made make no sense to you, that why I have included these five funny statements over here. See, as I said, right, I want the session to be interactive and not boring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain you what a SIM does with these five layman examples, so that you will never forget the core functions of a SIM. Okay. So here, this is where I need your interaction. So now imagine if you have a 200-page notebook without an index, and I tell you, please find this particular topic, you know, inside that notebook. So what exactly you do, basically, either you create up an index over here, or you find a note, you create your index yourself, or you pick up a notebook which has already an index, right? Because without index, it's very difficult for you to understand and follow what exactly is going on. Correct. So similar to that, SOC, what exactly a SIM does? SIM basically indexes the data. Okay, it performs indexing so that if there is a big chunk of data, then it will be very easy for the, you know, SOC analyst or the SIM, the entire SOC infrastructure to understand the data. So that is what primary function of a SOC is. That is data indexing, indexing of the data. What exactly mean by indexing? It means that there is a huge big chunk of data, and you basically take that data, reduce it to a level wherein it indexes, so that it's easy for you to search. That is what a SOC does. Now, will you eat 3 meals at once? Unless and until you want to be a sumo champion, will you eat 3 meals at once? Not really, right? So how it's related to SIM over here? Basically, SIM also will help you to make your data concise. Means you have chunks and chunks of data, but you won't consume the data all together at once. So SIM will help you to dedupe the data, index the data, and dedupe means only what is relevant, how much is relevant in specific intervals of time, dividing your data in specific intervals of time, and only collecting what is required from a security standpoint. That is also what SIM helps for. Have you ever been on a dating site? I mean, how it's related to a SOC? Basically, in a dating site, you are aware of the basic fact, right? That how you can do a choices, you can do a left choice, you can do a right swipe, left swipe, right swipe, right? Similar to that, in SIM, basically you have a choice and liberty that what you want, what you don't want, and which tools you want to integrate it with, and what are the technologies you don't want to integrate it with. So you have control over your data. See, data is still there. I'm not saying that you're deleting the data at the source, no, but you can control the data at a SIM. Data is still there, the source is also still there, but SIMs allows you to do a right swipe and the left swipe. What data is important, what is not important, what data is security related, what data is not security related. That is what a SIM helps us to do. Then correlate and elevate. It means it helps you to correlate your data and elevate further in your security operations. And the last thing, the primary function that a SIM does is learning via pictures is more effective, isn't it? I'm pretty well sure you guys know what I'm talking here about. That whenever you have visuals, it's more easy for you to learn and understand. Similar to that, SIM helps you to build dashboards. SIM helps you to create insights. SIM helps you to create visuals with your data, creating pie charts, creating bar graphs, and so on. That is what all a SIM helps you to do with your data. Make sense? I hope all of the five sentences are making sense in terms of what a SIM does. Okay, going ahead. So at a high level, at a technical level, these are your log sources. It could be a firewall, your workstation, your desktop, your router, and so on. It's collecting data in as a form of events. In SIM, logs are called as events. It could be, login fail, login success, TCP outbound, inbound connection, connection failed, connection initiated, and so on. All of these events are collected and organized, indexed, visualized, and other important operations, data operations are performed so that you can detect, you are notified, you are alerted for the security threats, and you can respond to those security threats. That is what a SIM functions. Today there are thousands of vendors. So what is the current SIM trend? There are thousands of vendors providing the SIM solution, and most of these companies who provide a SIM solution are the ones who provide an EDR and XDR combined together. That is what that reality today is. There are tons of vendors. I mean, like, you guys might be aware of it because you guys might be using different SIM in your organizations. But yes, there are tons and tons of SIM vendors actually. So going ahead, I'll be touching upon the Q&A now. But before I touch upon the Q&A, there is something in terms of the trends in SOC. So apart from whatever I explained just right now in terms of the fundamentals of a SOC, what are the current trends? What are the current ongoing trends in a SOC? So today, if you ask me, today SOC is correlated with AI. How AI and security operations can be, conjuncted together so that we use AI for our security operations. Today, there is a trend of proactive monitoring, means making your threat intel or making your detection logic so advanced that you are at a proactive mode, not a reactive mode. Means even before a threat comes, you are able to identify, you are able to get a hint of the threat. Today, the world is, or the SOC is moving towards behavior based analytics. I mean, I know there is behavior analytics engine and so on, but behavior based means the SOC world is moving more and more towards detection of behaviors rather than simple indicators. Okay, that is what some of the trends of in SOC are. If you ask me about the people who are new to this webinar or people who are new to the SOC world, if you ask me at a high level, what are the interview topics that you prepare in SOC? Trust me, if you Google that question, right, even if you search on LinkedIn SOC interview questions, you will find thousands of PDFs on it. Thousands of PDFs. What is a threat? Define a vulnerability. What is a SOC? How do you define a SOC? I mean, I don't want to go through all of those interview questions right now. But one of the key insights that I have, seen while giving interviews, while taking interviews for SOC is today, if you give a SOC interview, your technical skills are evaluated, but more or less your management skills in terms of how, how is your critical thinking present. So most of the time, people today in SOC interviews, like let's say if you clear the technical round, basic technical round for which you get questions like what is a threat and what is a vulnerability. And I mean, nobody asks this, what is a threat and vulnerability these days. But let's say if you clear a technical round in terms of SIM questions and everything, you're even in those technical rounds or even at in your second rounds, what I have seen as a trend in SOC interviews is that people question your critical thinking ability. It means people will give you questions like, if let's say there is a ransomware incident and at the same time there is a data breach, there are two incidents going on in parallel. As an incident responder or as a SOC analyst, which incident you will focus first, which incident you will prioritize first, and why? You see, it questions your critical thinking, right? That what you need to do over here. Then you will be getting questions such as, let's say you as a SOC analyst are working on an incident and it's a weekend and nobody is available except for one single person in your team with whom you don't have a good bonding, and you have a conflict of ideas. How will you manage this situation? And there is an incident going on. Will you fight with the other colleague that please utilize my idea, or will you take their viewpoint? What would you do in this case? These are the type of questions. Okay. Then if you ask me technical questions also, these days technical questions are not simple what is a threat, right? As I said, these days technical questions are like, if there is a machine, if there is an, let's say, EC2 machine, if it's deleted, okay, by mistakenly it's deleted, and it has production data, it had production data, what are the steps you will do to basically take back the operations now? And there is no backup of that machine. What will you do now? It hits your critical thinking zone again. So these are some of the interview trends that I have observed.